Hello, this is Angelia, and you are listening to or watching the podcast, Why You Do What You Do. The podcast that talks about human development and psychology to maybe help you figure out a little bit more about why you do what you do. Y'all know my time. And we're going to start talking about personal relationships in late life. Senior citizens still have personal relationships, believe it or not. We're going to dig into that. Most older people's lives are enriched by the presence of longtime friends and family members. And that's most people. Like I say, there are people who are loners and they prefer to be loners. You can't put a square peg in a round hole. Although older adults may see people less often, personal relationships continue to be important, perhaps even more so than before. And that's usually because they need someone to talk to. They need someone to kind of help them out sometimes. So, it's important for older adults to have someone there for them. Social contact. As people age, they tend to spend less time with others, and that's just a fact of life. They become more introspective. They, are doing their own thing that maybe they couldn't do, before they got to that point in their life. So, that's important. Work is often a convenient source of social contact. And it is. A lot of people make friends at work, and they have friends from work. My husband worked 30 years with this one guy, and the guy that retired and has left work. But my husband still texts him. They're still buddies. So, and I still have some friends from places that I've worked. So, work can be, once you're an adult, an important part of your social network. Thus, long-time retirees have fewer social contacts than more recent retirees or those who continue to work. And that's just obvious because they're out of the workforce and they don't, come into contact with these people anymore. For some older adults, infirmities make it harder to get out and see people. And I know that can be a thing. After my first heart attack, I was down on the couch for weeks. I didn't feel like doing anything. I ended up giving my car to one of my sons because I didn't think I'd be driving anymore. And then I got better and couldn't go anywhere because I didn't have a car. So there were social opportunities that I missed because they were during the day. When I couldn't go, and I didn't want to be that old lady, that was a pain in the butt that everybody had to give a ride to. I didn't want to be that. There for a while, I didn't go anywhere or see anybody. And I had a few, like I say, I have about 3 good friends who I know if I was asking for anything, they'd give me the shirt off their back, and I appreciate that because that's the kind of person I am. I would do that for you. Within reason. They checked on me. They called and checked on me or texted and checked on me. And I appreciated that because, they wanted to know what's going on. Are you okay? That's the kind of friends that you need to keep in your circle because those are the friends who actually care about you. I supposedly have a lot of friends, but none of them checked on me, so that's all I'm saying. Studies also show that older people often bypass opportunities for increased social contact and are more likely than younger adults to be satisfied with smaller social networks. And I found that to be true. I used to go out, me and my husband, when we were younger, we went out and did everything, went everywhere, and we had a blast. And then, when I was younger, I'd go out and do stuff and have fun. And now, it's like I want to do things that appeal to me. And that I know friends that I like are going to be there. My nice friends are going to be there. We've kind of shrunk down a little bit. So, that's true. That's something to not be worried about if that starts happening to you, especially once you get over 60 or so. Even, like I say, I'm in my 50s still. I'm headed to 60 pretty quick. But, it's not something to be worried about if you feel yourself kind of shrinking away. Now, if you start isolating yourself where you don't see anybody and you weren't like that before, like I said, some people were just like that, then that might be something you want to go talk to somebody about. Yet the social contacts older adults do have are more important than their well-being than ever. And that's, like I said, you get to a certain point where you know who's got your back. You know who you can trust. And those are the people that you hang out with. Those are the people that you want to talk to and do stuff with. Because you know they're going to be there for you and they're your real friends. Why is this? According to social convoy theory, changes in social contact typically affect only a person's outer, less intimate social circles. So, when the pairing of those friends starts happening, you know who's like a superficial friend. It's like I invited 50 people to an event and like a handful showed up. So, those are the folks who really care about you and want to be involved in your life. I was sort of popular. I wasn't the most popular. I was maybe the second most popular girl in school. But I found out a lot of those folks, that's why they were hanging around. To be able to say they were friends with me. And I had another friend who told me that the girl who always professed to be my best friend was only hanging around with me because she liked picking up my leftover guys. And I was like, oh no, surely not. Because I would never be that way. So, I mean, that's always hard, if you're a good person, that you always are taken aback when somebody acts in a way that you would not act yourself. This woman, tried to take my husband. And I was like, wait, what? I was like, oh, I guess this other girl was right back in high school when she told me this about you, because I didn't believe it, and now here you are, trying to take my husband from me. So, you are a piece of garbage. And so out she went. Another woman that I've known since 10th grade went out the other day, because in her mind, it's okay to kill people. She doesn't believe in peaceful demonstrations. She calls them civil disruptions. And innocent people who get killed are collateral damage. So she went, because I'm sorry, that's not anything normal. And that's sure not what Jesus had to say. In fact, I remember Jesus' words being, about welcoming foreigners and the land and things like that. Yeah. WWJD, folks. Run that through before you start spouting. After retirement, as coworkers and other casual friends drop away, most older adults retain a stable inner circle of social convoys. And that's the people, like a truck convoy, the people that you travel with, people you run with, as my dad used to say. Why you running with people like that? I ran with so-and-so. But that's your social circle. Close friends and family members on whom they can rely for continued social support and who strongly affect their well-being for the better. So that is something, it's like one of my friends said, I'm just getting too old to put up with the BS. So that's why they've kind of cut off a lot of people in their circle, because they just think they're getting too old to put up with the BS. And I mean, I found that's kind of the case. When you were younger, you might, yeah. But when you're like, you know what? You're not a good person. I don't like you. And so, okay, if that's the way you want to be, bye. Because my life is too short to deal with your deal. According to Socioemotional Selectivity theory, but you can't say that 3 times fast. Let's say it again. Socioemotional Selectivity theory. It kind of speaks for itself there, doesn't it? Older adults become increasingly selective about the people with whom they spend their time. And that just kind of goes without saying. If you're trying to be like a good, thoughtful, loving, decent person, and you come up against people who are like bad or, ignorant or hateful or indecent, you're going to be like, no. And like, my father and my husband both get on me. They say I give people too many chances. My husband should be happy that I give people too many chances, really. But, I just feel like that's what you should do. have a disagreement with someone, you should talk it out and hash it out and, figure out where the problem lies and what you're going to do about it. And that's just the way I am. I'm a constructive, positive, person. I'm trying to walk in my be like Jesus shoes. So, as we age, there are less people allowed. I don't know if you remember the movie Meet the Fockers and the Circle of Trust. Less people get in the circle of trust. So, when people perceive their remaining time as short, immediate emotional needs take precedence over long-range goals. So, towards the end of your life, you want to feel good. You want to be happy. You're not striving to be at the top of your career anymore. You're not striving to get somewhere usually unless you get into retirement. But, all that stuff is behind you. And, putting up with people's stuff is less important. A college student may be willing to put up with a disliked teacher for the sake of gaining knowledge or to get into graduate school. And yeah, that's true. I had a psychology teacher at one of my colleges who was definitely not a nice person. She would just say really mean stuff to people for no reason. We had a little online class, and I was just like, you know what? I've met some crappy teachers, but this chick takes the cake. Because, there's no reason to degrade into personal insults and things like that. If someone asks a question. The question is how we learn things. That's what I taught my kids. We ask questions, and that's how we learn things. Not to just assume, because you know what happens when you assume. I just, her whole demeanor was really foul. So a lot of us, didn't care for her, but I'm like, I'm not going to quit, because I'm getting my education, one way or another. That is true. When you're younger, you might put up with more from people than you do as you get older. An older adult may be less willing to spend precious time with a friend who gets on her nerves. And I had that kind of fairly recently. There was someone who was just, and like I say, you get to a certain age, you're just like, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to deal with this, and like I say, I give people chances. I talk to people and say, hey, why are you doing this? Why are you acting like this? Because I want to get them to think about their behavior, because if their behavior is the problem, it's like, hey, why are you doing this? Why are you saying this? What is this about? I want them to think about their behavior, because maybe they're just having a bad day, and I just try to give them a chance to be nice. But some people just are never wrong, and they can't be nice. So sometimes you just gotta be like, okay, I'm done. Give you every chance in the world, I'm done. Young adults with a free half hour and no urgent commitments may choose to spend the time with someone they would like to get to know better. And that's true. When we were younger, I remember hanging out with guys I liked, or hanging out with girls that I thought might become a friend, and that's what you do when you're young. Older adults tend to choose someone they know well. Like I say, I have certain friends that I know like this, that, or the other thing. So I have some friends, if there's a play I want to go see at the theater or whatever, I know those are the friends I call. If I want to go look at some art, these are the friends I'll talk to. If I want to go just for a cup of tea, these are the friends I would invite. So, we learn, how we interact with people and what they like, and people we like to spend time with. And those are the people who we're going to want to keep in our inner circle, because we have a lot in common. And we're going to have a good time together and a happy time together. And that's more important than, spending time with somebody that irritates you so much, and you're just like, why? So, you're not going to want to do it. Even though older people may have fewer close relationships than younger people do, they tend to be more satisfied with those that they have. And like I say, that's because you start aligning yourself with people who are more like you. You want positive, happy experiences, not, negative, unhappy experiences. So, you start aligning yourself with the people who are more like you. And sometimes, that can even mean, excuse me. Hope that was just something and not a piece of tooth. But, sometimes even people that you were close to at one point in time, suddenly, people change. People change. Everyone grows and changes. And so, they just might not be the person that they were when you first started being around them. So, sometimes it's sad that happens, but it can happen. While the size of the social network and the frequency of contacts declines, the quality of social support apparently does not. And like I say, that's because you're choosing people who are more like you, who are, compatible with you, who you like to spend time with, and y'all have a good time together. And that's what's important. So as you get older, your social contact is probably going to decline, but that's not that big a deal. And you might find that you're more choosy about who you spend time with. Also, not that big a deal. It's just going to mean that your later years are going to be happier. Because we all have, personal relationships in our life. And at some point, you're going to want to choose the ones that enrich your life, not tear it down. And, if we could have learned that when we were younger, it would have been better, but it only comes with experience. So, that's where I'm going to leave you for today. I hope that helped you figure out maybe a little bit more about why you do what you do. Please like and share this educational program so we can spread it around the world. If you want to help me out, subscribe to my YouTube channel. If you want to help me out even more, go to my Patreon page and become a patron. Thanks for watching or listening. That's all for now. Until next time.